World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the premiere edition of Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology, a guide to unlock some of the more misunderstandings, some of the myths, some of the truths, and everything behind what I do. I am considered an astro-numerologist, and what my goal is to invite you into the Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology each Thursday to ask questions, give birthdays, to seek answers and better understanding of who you are, metaphysically speaking. What I did was I formed a list of questions to get started as an introduction, okay? So for example, I use the term astro-numerology. There are two actually schools of thought. There is astrology, then there's numerology, but over the years, I've merged both of them, which is what I am known for in the metaphysical world as an astro-numerologist. First of all, what is astrology? Astrology is the study of the stars. In terms of, it's interesting, there's been these sciences of astrology, numerology, have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. These are not Johnny-come-lately. However, they're more popular than ever before. And what makes the difference is that now it's more popular. It's almost, for example, almost every newspaper or publication, except maybe the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, has an astrology column. And what people don't know is that kings and people of rulership have used astrology and numerology since time can remember. One of the most popular ones was J.P. Morgan. When he was once asked, now J.P. Morgan was born in the late 1800s. But when he was at the height of his fame as a financier, they once asked him, when they found out he studied astrology, is it true that astrology makes millionaires? His response was no, it makes billionaires. For example, in Evangeline Adams was an astrologer in her day, and she wrote this book called The Bowl of Heaven. It's her autobiography. And she explained in that book that she actually taught J.P. Morgan astrology. Now, to give you a reference, now we still know about J.P. Morgan banks, right? Well, J.P. Morgan died on March the 31st in 1913, well over 100 years ago, okay? So, but to this day, his name acts as an institution. But kings and heads of governments and all kinds of people. In fact, President Ronald Wilson Reagan used astrology, and what makes it unique was this. There had only been 5 Aquarian presidents. Out of the 5 Aquarian presidents, he was the only one to get out of office alive. Every single one of them, from William Henry Harrison, McKinley, Lincoln, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. All 4 of those Aquarians died in office. 3 of them died in the month of April, by the way. But it shows you, but once there was an attack on Ronald Wilson Reagan in front of the Hilton Hotel on March the 30th of 1981, when he was sworn in because he won the election of 1980 on November the 4th. Once there was the attack on his life, his wife, Nancy Reagan, called in Joan Quigley, was the astrologer, and he made no decisions. He did not travel anywhere unless he used astrology. Right now, they make astrology kind of entertaining, like fun, but it is very, very serious. And it's a reason why this lasts a long time as it is, and will last much longer than the civilization goes, because you can believe me, it lasts a long time. But astrology is simply the study of the stars. It simply tells the motions of where your sun was at the month, the day, and the year you were born, and the time. It tells your moon. It tells your ascendant. All of that I'll touch on. Now, what is numerology? Well, numerology is just as old as astrology. In fact, there was a debate. It's like the chicken or the egg. Which came first, astrology or numerology? But I'll answer that question in a few too. Well, numerology is the ancient metaphysical study of numbers. Numbers carry a frequency. Numbers carry a direction. And so, for example, when you are in your car and you put in a GPS, all it is calibrated by numbers in terms of the longitude and the latitudes in the heavens. And this is how you're able to get from one destination to another. Now it's so sophisticated that it can tell you whether there's traffic or accidents or whatnot. It has grown, but numbers do everything. And imagine a world without numbers, okay? And I once joked that, like, if you don't believe in numbers, can you please send me your paycheck? Well, I've been doing this a great number of years, and I've yet to receive somebody's paycheck. So somebody believes in numbers another way. But then there are numbers that does this way. In the world of reality, for example, they tell you what, don't give out your social security number, don't give out your PIN number, don't give out this, that, or other numbers like that. But if you wanted to know or meet the most, say, somebody in the world, you got to get the right numbers. And if you dial the right numbers in the right order, you get the person you are looking for. Well, numerology goes into the more metaphysical side. So when you go to a doctor, for example, they will look at your numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol, this, that, and the other, your sugar levels and whatnot. These numbers will guide them. When you go into an accountant to pay taxes or at that time for business, they will tell you whether you're going to get something, whether you owe something, or whatever the case is, whether the business is in the black or the business is in the red. They all look at numbers. And how can you tell the score if numbers were not existent? So try to imagine a world without numbers, but numbers are so important part. So people use numbers far more than astrology. Yes, on those occasions, like a show like this, they will talk about your zodiac sign, where my moon is. You heard about Mercury retrograde. This is aspected to this, and other planets of Saturn and Mercury and Mars and Jupiter and Venus, things of that nature. But numbers are so part and parcel of what we do. That's the part we really take for granted without numbers. So for example, when you're looking at this show now, it sends out a frequency in the air that you and I can't see, touch, or taste, but it exists, which allows you to tune into this particular program. And so once you understand that and then look at numbers from a metaphysical side, then you understand. So again, imagine the world of sports without using numbers. How would they know the score? If you talk to an athlete, his or her, I guess, most flattering thing is to have his or her jersey retired from the franchise, never to be worn again. As long as that franchise exists, no other person can come in and wear that jersey number. And so if you look at some of these sports stores, they sell all these jerseys, and people will actually buy jerseys if it's number 23, number 20, number 19, whatever the case is. It reflects their favorite professional player, whether it's in basketball, football, or whatever the case is. So, but then when you look at the more esoteric side of it, yes, it's invisible, you can't see, but it impacts you more than you can ever remember. So, with that being the case, what is astro-numerology? Well, astro-numerology is the blend of blending the best of both worlds. You take a little of the stars, you take a little of the numbers, and when you put it together, you actually get a more complete composite of that person. For example, Geminis, the sign of Gemini, every zodiac sign has a stereotype. Well, Gemini, they really get it. Like, okay, they two-faced it, they whatever the case is like that. But that's not true. It is the birthday of which a person is born on that modifies it. So, for example, I once had the privilege of interviewing famous actress in her day, Pam Grier, who was born on May the 26th. Now, she is a Gemini, but numerically, she's a number 8. Well, when I interviewed her, you know what her pleasure was? Not so much of being a kind of a sex goddess on the screen, but farming. But that made sense because 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 is an earth number. So it likes to deal with the land. It likes to deal with legacy. So this is why I got into blending of both of them. Here's another thing too. In astrology, each of the signs from Aries to Pisces is ruled by an element, okay? Some is fire, some is earth, some is air, some is water, same as the numbers. So, for example, if I just studied astrology, to take this famous couple, Angela Bassett and Courtney Vance, right? Well, Angela Bassett, the famous actress, is a Leo. That's a fire sign. Her husband, that they've been married for decades, is a Pisces, which is a water sign. So I would say, well, we all know that anytime you want to extinguish a fire, you grab water. However, if you look at Angela Bassett's birthday, August 16th, 1 plus 6 is 7, and that's a water number. If you look at Courtney Vance's birthday, March the 12th, well, 1 plus 2 is 3, which is a fire number. So she is a fire sign with a water number. He happens to be a water sign with a fire number. So this explains those exceptions to the rules. Because if I was just into astrology, I said, well, you know, you two, y'all ain't supposed to be together. That don't work out. But when you put and blend the best of both worlds together, it begins to make a difference. And so I encourage some of you who are listening on this premiere edition of Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology to put in your birthdays, to make a comment. And over it, so then I'll easily explain to you so you can get to see the difference, all right? Now, they say that numerology and astrology is a pseudoscience. Now, what does that mean? Pseudo is supposed to mean, well, it's science, but it's not science. No, astrology is an exact science. Numerology is an exact science. It's just that simple. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's not pseudo math. That's the math. I don't care. We can jump on the table and argue, but at the end of the day, once we calm ourselves down and get off the table, 2 plus 2 is still going to be 4. So I think for people who feel that, well, this isn't, and by the way, this leads me to this too. People will say, well, don't this goes against the laws of God? I say no. Why not? Well, first of all, if you go to the Old Testament, and by the way, there are 3 religious groups who shall be nameless at this point that feels that these sciences of astrology and numerology goes against the laws of God. But let me explain this way. Religion is a belief. With numerology and astrology, it is a science. It is a direct science. And this is very important to understand. So I might believe so and so and so and so, but the scientific matter is this is the reality of a situation. Then I go to the Bible, okay? In the Bible, they talk about, if you go to the Old Testament, the 4th book of Moses called the book of Numbers. The God instructs Moses on the 2nd day of the 2nd month to name the armies by their name and their pole. Now, just stop a second. Yana says, how often should you use astronumerology in making moves in your life? You having a Star 8 app, how should one use it in their daily activities? That's good. I am going to talk about my my Star 8 app that you can use, whether you're an Android user or an Apple user. I've designed the app where you can list and align the best days that work for you. Timing is everything. For example, you've heard the phrase, that person was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think most people, if you've lived long enough, you've heard that phrase. Well, my app is designed to make sure you're in the right place at the right time in harmony with the universe. And that's where the difference comes in. And thanks so much for that, Yana. Great question. And I'll explain that later as we get into it. But here's another thing too. I find it interesting. I'll meet a person that says, I don't believe in astrology, right? I'll say, well, casually, what's your zodiac sign? They'll say Capricorn. They'll say this and that. So for somebody who don't believe in it, right away, they know their zodiac sign, which I think is kind of ironic, so to speak, but it helps you understand the things that are happening. And here's another thing. When I say religion is a belief, but the metaphysics of astrology and numerology are sciences. Okay? So, you know, in the Bible, they talk about the 10 commandments, honor thy mother and father, put no God before me, thou shalt not kill, you know, other things that happens. Well, name me a war since Cain killed Abel in the Bible up until now, and would you look at this modern 21st century of what's going on now, the wars over here, the wars over there, everybody's mad at each other. Name me a war, and I tell people of these religious bodies, name me a war fought in the name of a zodiac sign of Taurus. They can't name me one. Name me a war fought in the name of Cancer. They cannot name me one. Name me a war fought in the name of the number 3. They can't name me one. So my attitude is this: at least what I do don't kill anybody. It doesn't harm a nation. It doesn't harm a people. It doesn't harm a culture or anything of that nature. So this is very, very important to understand that at least what I do brings no harm to anyone. But yet, the most powerful people in the world have always used the secret of the stars, the astrology, the numerology, even Hitler too. Napoleon also. I mean, there are countless people. There used to be I don't know whether it still exists, but there used to be a journal, a Wall Street astrological journal that helped people pick their stocks and which stocks is likely to do well, which stocks is not likely to do well, and things of that nature. But these are for more the serious kinds of people. But for the general public, it's just something to just do something to just pass the time of day. Well, I'm just signing. Yes, that fits and whatever. So this is what the case is. Now, how are astrology and numerology similar? Well, they're both similar in the sense that they take the date of birth, okay? That with astrology, in fact, speaking of numbers, you can't give a birthday without using numbers. So let's say you got a person born on a particular month, day, year, time, and location. Well, to an astrologer, in order to correct your chart in a proper way, they need 5 pieces of numerical information. Number 1, what month were you born? That's a number. Number 2, what day you were born. Number 3, what year you were born. Number 4, especially, what time were you born? And number 5, where you were born. Now, most people for the most part know the month, the day, and the time, year they were born. Some don't know the time. I found that in my experience, particularly those from the South, those from the Caribbean, and those in other parts of the world, they'll say, well, my mom says I was born in the morning, in the evening, during a rainstorm, or whatever the case is. But to an astrologer, for them to correctly do your chart, they must know what the time is, because that tells you what house the sun is sitting in. There are 12 houses in the zodiac, like 12 months in the year, okay? So like the 12 disciples in the Bible. It's the 12 tribes of Israel, of the 12 tribes of Israel, okay? So these are some of the things that it takes to do these things of study. However, then with numerology, what got me to this, because I first started out as an astrologer, and everybody know the month, the day, and the year. Then I would erect a chart. They says, well, I'm born at 7:53 p.m. I do the chart, the information. I bring it back to them. Lo and behold, they found out the information. They were born at 7:53 a.m. Well, the 12-hour difference makes all the difference in the world, because the planets are moving. They're always in motion. Now, we can't see it, but how do you think we get our day? How do you think we get our nights? Because the Earth is constantly evolving around the sun, or I should say the sun is evolving around the Earth. You take your choice about it, but my point is this, that right now it is evening, and when I close my eyes and get up in the morning, there will be daylight. That means it is evolved. So when you take those things in mind, you begin to see and begin to make a better study of how these things work. They're always changing. And see, here's why you need the exact location. I'm here in New York City. It's about 7:30, something like that, or going on 7:30. Well, if I was in Hawaii, I go back in time because that's 6 hours behind me. If I was in California, I'm 3 hours ahead of it. So my 7 o'clock here would be a 4 o'clock there in California. Then if I went to London, that's 6 hours ahead. If I went to China or Egypt, that's 12 hours ahead. So this is why an astrologer, so you can say, yes, I was born on this month, this day, this year, this time. That would totally be true. But unless the astrologer has where you were born at, that makes all the difference in the world, because 7 o'clock here is 4 o'clock in California. It is 1 o'clock in Hawaii. It is 1 o'clock in the morning in London. It is, so we say 9 o'clock in the morning in Egypt or China. You see what I'm saying? Or India. So this is why they need to know the exact time if you can. Now, there are some professional astrologers, if you don't know your time, can actually help you by asking you certain questions like your childhood first accidents or anything that you can remember that will give them a clue that maybe your Sunday, because let me tell you what it is. The sun and the moon is very important, is easy. The sun represents what part of the year you were born in. So if a person is born in the middle of April, they're in Aries. If they're born in the middle of July, they're a Cancer. If they're born in the middle of November, they are a Scorpio. That's one thing. But then the moon revolves every 2.5 days. So every 28 days, there's a lunar cycle because it's going around the zodiac signs, okay? So the moon is easy. Now, what is the difference? The sun sign represents your personality, the aura that you give off, the energy that you vibe to. Your moon, that represents your emotional kind of expression, how you feel inside, that people can't see, but the person born under that moon sign can feel. The ascendant or rising sign represents the way you look physically. So, for example, you could have an Aquarius or Capricorn that's known basically for their height, tallness, but their ascendant could be in Virgo, which is technically a short sign. So it's all these kind of nuances. And then there's the degrees. And it's always in 3, 6, and 9, because Nikola Tesla says those who understand the 3, 6, and 9 understand the universe. So if you do an astrology chart, is it a conjunction? Is it an opposition? Is it a sextile? And it's either 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 360 degrees, no matter what it is, it's always 3 or 6s or 9s. And then where is the sun at in one of those 12 houses? Where is the moon at in one of those 12 houses? So yes, it's very simple from appearances, but it can be quite complicated to a professional astrologer that knows his or her background in terms of how to look and analyze a chart. Well, numerology goes into it too. Yes, it's simple to say, well, my birthday is so-and-so, but this is how I got into numerology in the first place. Because the one thing it does not need is the time and the location you were born. Numerology simply needs the month you were born, the day you were born, and the year you were born. Just that simple. And so that's when I started moving into numerology, But then over time, over the last 40 years or so, I've blended it and become known as Astro-Numerology, because before then, it was barely a term used. Nowadays, it's a given that Astro-Numerology is a common term that I really pioneered, to be very honest with you. So when you hear this term, it came from me, to be honest with you. So by blending these two worlds, you get to know a person. So for example, if I take a person that's born on June the 30th, well, the person would know, oh, that's a Cancer. However, they're not a Cancer anymore to me. They're a Cancer 3 person because they're born on the 30th day of the month. So it's the month, it's the date that shades or modifies the zodiac signs, okay? And so this is why every Scorpio isn't the same. I had a client one time that says, I dated Scorpio, I'll never date another Scorpio again. I guess we all have some stereotypes like that. But what it simply is saying is that there will be ways that if you understand, there are all kinds of signs. So for example, one is interesting, like April the 20th. On April the 20th, some people born, that all depends on, again, on seeing, this is where astrology comes in. It depends on where you were born on April the 20th, what time you were born on April the 20th, because for some people, like Luther Vandross said I met, that was born on April 20th, he's a Taurus. If I talk to Hitler that was born on April the 20th, he's an Aries. If I talk to Tito Puente, the famous Latin orchestra person, he was a Taurus, okay? If you talk to Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld, who's born on April the 20th, I do believe he is a Taurus. And so this is the thing in astrology too. Anybody born around the 20th, the 21st, or the 22nd of the month are known as cusp children. That's C-U-S-P-S, cusp. Now, what does that mean? That means they're on the fence. They're on the fence. And the way I put it is, people born around the 20th, 21st, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, it's like they got a foot in one sign they're about to leave, and the other foot is stepping into the sign right after that. So my experience has been that people born around the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, normally, as a rule, will kind of read both signs as they're growing up. And by the time they reach young adulthood, teenage years, especially young adult, they kind of know whether I think I'm born on the Taurus side of this birthday or I'm born on the Aries side of this birthday. But again, it all depends, because some is true. But it all depends on where were you born on April the 20th? What part of this world were you born in? Were you born 6 months behind, 6 hours behind, like in Hawaii? Or were you born 6 hours ahead, like in London? Or 12 hours ahead in India? It makes all the difference in the world. So now you see why they need that information. And if you can, you should have it. Now, what's the difference between numerology and astrology? Well, astrology must take into consideration, as I said, the month, the day, and the year you're born, along with the time and the location. Numerology does not, which is why I got into that, because a lot of times people were very confused about it. And I will say this too. Now you see why our elders in the South and in the Caribbean and other parts of the world would keep the information of the child of the birth in the Bible. That used to be standard. But if you talk to generations back, people like 50, 60, 70 years who grew up in the South and the Caribbean and stuff like that, the reason why was this. They had the midwife that would eventually come through the town, through the county, and they would collect all the birthdays and names of the children. This is why you hear sometimes people in the Caribbean and in the South say, well, my mother says I was born here, but my birth certificate says I'm born on this day. All right. And technically they would be true, because you got to understand, when the midwives will come through collecting all the birthday data of the children born in that county during that time they're passing through, they're just going back and saying, okay, here's the information. They entered into the system, a birth certificate is issued, and voila, there it is. But again, this is the reason why the elders used to keep information like that in the Bible. The month, the day, the year, the time the child was born and the name given to them. They don't do any of that anymore. But if you talk to your elders, anybody 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they would tell you that was standard, especially if you lived in the South and in the Caribbean. Or another thing I'll do is I'll ask the person, okay, if you're not sure, what child were you? Were you number one child? Were you the number two child, number three child? For those of you who have given birth or seen birth come live birth come into the world, the one thing a mother does not do unless she's infirmed or in something like that nature, which is normally not the case in 90% of the time or more, they know exactly what day the child was born in. So if they says, my mother says I was born on this day and they're child number one, I don't care what the birth certificate says. I'm going with what the mother says. For those of you who are mothers out there in this listening audience, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, I remember I was moving the couch and my water broke, and almost every mother that's brought a child into the world's got a story about how you got here. I was shopping, minding my business. Next thing I had to run to the hospital because the water broke and whatever. Women have many, many stories. Born in cars, born on airplanes, whatever the case is. So it's very, very interesting. So now in the South, where there used to be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 children, I can understand why things would get a little hazy, which is why they use the Bible to document the birth of their children, okay? But if you child number 1, 2, or 3, I'm always going to go with the mother. But that has been my experience after decades of doing this, to realize, and sure enough, when I do the birthday that the mother says they were, it seems to fit more their personality. Because see, with the stars in astrology, it fits the profile astrologically of the individual. In numerology, it fits the personality of the mother or of the person involved too. So that's what it is. Now, let me tell you another distinct difference between astrology and numerology. Now, the similarity is both of them use the birthday. Unlike astrology, though, numerology uses your name, okay? Shakespeare, the famous author, once says, what's in a name? His response was everything, okay? And so the name is very, very important. Now, here in the West, there are two schools of thoughts. Now, there are different schools of numerology. I've seen Japanese systems. I've seen an African system. They've got all kinds of systems. But here in the West, there are two primary schools of thought. There is the Pythagorean theory system, and then there is the Chaldean system. What's the difference? I'm glad you asked. With the Pythagorean system, it says you take the name you were given at birth. So if I'm talking to an adult and I said, listen, I need to know what was your exact name on your birth certificate. Okay. But and here's what I'm saying, because if you talk to people of Hispanic descent or other cultures, they'll have 4 or 5 names in the birth certificate. Their mother's name, the grandmother's name, abuela's name, or whatever the case is. And yet they will be known as Jose Inglese. You see what I'm saying? Or something like that. However, when you talk to an adult, they already know, no matter what was on the birth certificate, because normally we're born with a first, middle, and last name. But basically, rarely do we know a total name. So I like the Chaldean system, because the Chaldean system says you take the name you're most known by. Okay. So this is what makes the difference. I use both systems when I'm teaching numerology, as I taught at City College here in New York City, and the Rosa Parks campus on 125th Street, the Studio Museum, or Medgar Evers College there on 7th Avenue in the Teresa Hotel. I always use the Pythagorean system because it's 1 to 9. It's very easy to associate. But both of them are good. So if you ask which one is the best one, they're both good depending on what you want. My preferred experience has been I use the Chaldean system. What is the difference other than you take the whole name at birth and the name you're most known by? In the Pythagorean system, the numbers go from 1 to 9. Under the Chaldean system, the numbers go from 1 to 8. So if you came up like me studying Pythagorean primarily, well, where's the 9 at? I don't like this system because it doesn't include a 9. Well, it has its reasons, because 9 under the Chaldean system was known as being very sacred. 9 is the Chaldean system, comes from that part of Egypt, Chaldea, where all the bricks were used to build the pyramids in Egypt. And talking about numbers, the origin of numbers is of African descent. You know, people will have some problems with that, as well as Arabic, is this, that, and other. I hear what people are saying. But the beautiful part about the Pyramid of Giza is it's built at the exact center of the earth. And if you ask on what continent is the Pyramid of Giza, it's on the African continent. So the argument is with me, y'all got to argue history. You know what I'm saying? So this is very, very important to understand that actually astrology and numerology is of African origin. All right. So people will debate that. I've got books on the subject, but until you move, the Pyramid of Giza somewhere else, you'll find it totally different. Okay. I do have a person, Stacy Robbins. Hi, Stacy. She was born on April the 9th, 64, and she believes in the afternoon in Philadelphia. What's my story? Okay, now this is a good case. We know that if she's born in April, she's in Aries. Numerically, she's a number 9. Okay, now you got many people born in Aries under a number 9, like Mariah Carey, but except she's born on the March side. She's March 27. 2 plus 7 is 9. Well, each number has a natural home around the wheel. The home of the number 9 is in the month of April. So that tells me, Stacy, that your birth number is exactly where it should be. 9 is an assertive number. Aries is an assertive sign. Aries is a number that feels good about themselves, and 9 normally think they're the greatest thing since ice cream. The one thing in my experience has been this too, Stacy, that almost all women I know under a number 9, plus you're a 9 Aries person, normally in their relationships, they tend to attract men in uniform. So if you attract or date or even in fact married a man in uniform, like the military, law enforcement, construction, machinist, toolist, even a surgeon, because they got to use scalpels and whatnot to perform their surgical procedures, that would not surprise me. Or you yourself may have been in the military or law enforcement or construction or whatever the case is. With all this 9 being a fire sign for Aries and 9 being a fire number, it tells me you always had a lot of get up and go, always very proactive, always had a good opinion of yourself. And I got to be honest, from your birthday too, Stacy, it suggests you get along much better with the men than with the women. Trust me. You know, Mom's Maybe, the famous comic that used to live in Harlem, she would say, the only thing a woman can do for her is bring her a man. Well, that's you, Stacy. Okay. It ain't like you don't have girlfriends. They were very few, but I'm willing to bet you've always had far more male friends than female friends. Okay. And with a guy, you know, you're going to get a straight answer. With a woman, because sometimes they might be jealous or envious of you. You never know how that's going to go. But I tell you this too, because each number also rules a part of the body or health. 9 is an injury number. 9s don't get sick by diseases because diseases don't like fires. And you're a fire sign with a fire number. So what it does do is 9 do like accidents, confrontations, fender benders, accidents from guns, knives, sharp instruments. So you should never be in a rush, because 9 is a number that can be impulsive sometime and rush. So you may have a scar or a nick, especially on the left side of your body, whether it's your knee from chasing a boy up the tree as a little girl, or a nick on the left side from dicing something and wasn't paying attention. Somebody put your attention, or whatever the case is. So those are the things. So if you visited hospitals, 9 times out of 10, it's either because you had a child or two, or visiting neighbors. But knock on wood, you don't do hospitals that much. Diseases don't like you, only accidents and injuries too. And I always advise number 9 people, since 9 has dominion over alcohol, to not let alcohol be your best friend, to keep that within moderation. Now, here's another technique in numerology too. It is called your personal year. What do I mean? I took November the 9th, added to 2025. Well, first of all, you're very welcome, Stacy, Because here's the thing, with a 9, this year, 2025, what remains of it adds up to a 9. Well, you're born on the 9th. Not only that, 9 governs the sign of Aries. That's you. So by zodiac sign and by number, this is your year. But it's been a year where you had to kind of stay within some limits, stay within some boundaries. There may have been some concerns around health issues, especially around the months of February, then May, then September, next month of November, things of that nature. But it tells me that you are now ready to break out the rut, to be moving, to do some more traveling, to explore things. So a lot of options and opportunities are presenting themselves to you. It should be a lot of fun. Then, before I close it, each of you have a lucky number, or I call it angel numbers. That's the popular thing now. Well, I see this number on TV. I see these numbers on license plate. Well, every single one of you who have a month, day, and year have an angel number. So your angel numbers are the 9, 6, and 3, which means your best angelic days are always on a Tuesday, Friday, and Thursday. So that's what I am seeing. Okay. Now, you're welcome, Stacey. Now, let me continue with this. So the difference with numerology and astrology, it deals with your name. Astrology does not. It takes the month, the day, the year you're born, the time you're born, location. True. Numerology don't need the time and the location, but it does something because, like when I've been on Oprah Winfrey shows and all these other TV shows, right? They don't ask me, well, let me talk about the zodiac signs. Well, yeah, so-and-so, and this is my sign, this is my number. But then they get back to, yeah, Lloyd, so-and-so, yeah, Barbara, so-and-so, and so. So it's the name. So with numerology, the month, the day, and the year you're born tells me why you are here. They call it your destiny number, your life path, or your soul path number. It is your name that tells me what you know in terms of your talents, gifts, skills, and abilities. That's why I got so fascinated with this. This is one of the most fascinating experiences I've ever had. I've been doing this for 45 plus years, and I'm never bored because every single one of you bring an individual experience in the scheme of life. Every single one of you. There are no exceptions. But we're not taught these things. When I first came into this, my attitude is every school, particularly high school, particularly colleges, when they have their so-called guidance counselors, should have this knowledge to tell them, especially when you're getting ready to graduate and go out into the world to find your niche in the world. What do you want to be? Well, there's a book that just came out that lists for each of the numbers from 1 to 9, then the master numbers 11 and 22, that tells you what best career suits you. Because it's not, well, the way I was raised in our community was you go to school, you get a good job, and then that's it. You educate yourself. But what happens about finding something you love to do? So people have asked me, well, Lloyd, do you have a job? Well, this kind of is my job in that sense, but it's more than a job to me. It's a passion. It's something I love to do. Every single one of you have your passions. It's just, how do you find it? Well, this book is called The Business of Astro-Numerology, and then the companion to it, which is like a part 2 that lists every number, at least 100 career occupations to kind of get you on your way. So when I was coming up in high school, the counselor says, well, I had the talent for being a barber. I knew I didn't like cutting hair. Okay, although my father was a barber, ironically. Not only that, I'm left-handed, and left-handed barbers was a superstition. So I knew right away I wasn't going to succeed in this area. But when it came to this, when I was introduced to this, I found out that if you call me 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, although you don't do that now, thank you, I would rub my eyes, get up, get a paper and a pen, and I would begin to do your name and your birthday. So it does a lot. And so, which came first? If you might say, there's like the chicken and egg, is it astrology? Is it numerology? Well, numerology had to come first. Why? Because when you talk to an astrologer, you must give him numerical information, the month, the day, the year, the time, and the location, because the location is like, it's to determine your ascendant, but it's like your GPS. That's how I refer to it now, which people can understand that concept. Where were the heavens What was the longitudes and the latitudes in the heavens at the time you were born? That's why a person born on the same month, day, and year, but a time in different countries, different locales, it all depends on how things are arranged, all right? With numerology, you don't have to do that. And again, it does not conflict with religion, because as I said, religion is a belief, and numerology and astrology are exact sciences, okay? It is not a pseudoscience. I think, I call them here in New York, those will be haters, you know what I'm saying? Doubters that want to plant seeds of doubts. But, 2 plus 2 is going to be 4. I can say, well, that's a pseudoscience. We know that's not true. Imagine a computer runs on just 2 numbers, zeros and ones. That's the whole system of a computer. Imagine when you put all 10 numbers together, 1 through 9 plus 0 together. Why you think you can't hit a lottery? Okay, if it was just that simple, everybody be rich, all right? I think about maybe a month ago here, they had one was about close to $1 billion or plus. But do you know listen, the odds of just even getting struck by lightning is 1,000,000 to 1. Then when you have a lottery that's into the hundreds of millions or billions, what are the odds of doing that? And people have asked me, well, Lloyd, do you know the lottery numbers? If I did, y'all wouldn't see me on this show. I'd be somewhere sailing on a cruise, chilling, okay? No. So I know numbers that are very important to you, but if I knew numbers was all that, I'd be swamped. And maybe it's good that I don't know, because it's not designed for me to do this in terms of speculation, but to use this as a guide. That's why my show is called Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology, how to help guide you, because each one of you, from your month, your day, and your year, have a place to be guided, have a place to have a direction, a focus in terms of where you should be. That's why one day for one person is a bad day for another person. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. That's like we saying we all wake up at the same time. That's not true. We all go to bed at the same time. That's not true. We all eat or bathe at the same time. That's just not true. We all have different energies. And when you put it together, when you combine both the zodiac sign of a person, which is 12, plus the 9 numbers, including the master numbers of 22, 11, and 22, which would be a total of 10 numbers it'd be a total of 12 numbers altogether. You can see the variations of combinations. It's like a lottery. So if you play a 3-way number in the street, let's say you play 276. Well, it's 276, 762, 72. You know what I'm saying? It's called a 6-way number. And so if you play 4 numbers, and then if you play these lotteries, what I think you got to pick 5, then you got to pick the Powerball number. Now you see why it's humongous every time somebody hits. And and I've found in my experience, though, is not playing your mother's numbers or the baby's numbers. Oftentimes, the lottery will pick it for you. You go to the lottery machine and just do what they call a quick pick. That's what they call it here in New York. Now, each state I've gone to where there haven't been lotteries, they always got their system. So here is take 5, something would be 5 bingos or something, but it's telling you whether you plan a 3-way number, 4-way number, 5 numbers, or the lottery or Powerball numbers. But again, the numbers are very, very important. And what about gambling? And then what about sports gambling? You know what I'm saying? I mean, really, really, really. So I don't know whether you've ever gone to a casino, but let me tell you what happens. You hear all the excitement of all the machines, right? And what are you doing? You're playing your numbers. And then I noticed when you go to these casinos that they give you free drinks. Imagine you don't have to buy no adult beverages. You know what I'm saying? That's to loosen you up. Okay. Then not only that, then they got ATM machines up in there too, just in case you didn't plan to spend no money and you feeling, well, I'm kind of close, because for every time you play a number, maybe you'll get spit back a couple of coins or dollars. You be say, woo, it's a science. That's why the odds always favors the house. It really is. There was an excellent movie with Robert De Niro and Sharon Stone called Casino. And it shows you how people can get entwined and get hooked. And famous celebrities have gotten hooked on the lotteries. It's like some people get hooked on alcohol, some on drugs, some people hooked on gambling. You know what I'm saying? Well, all this is around numbers, all around numbers. So no, it doesn't conflict with religion or whatever the case is. That's the difference. And here's one thing that's asking me too, as we begin to go down to the time of the show. Do you need any level of education to do astrology and numerology? The answer to it is you need Zippo. You don't even need a GED. If you know how to count from 1 to 9, you can do this. It's just, do you have the acumen, the kind of proclivity, the kind of like naturalness to do this? Now, everybody can count, let's assume, but then people may not be interested in taking it to the next level, as I've done, and other people who do this for a living. But you can do this, but no degrees are required, no scholarships are required, no college loans are required, no GEDs. If you can count from 1 to 9, you've got this. Trust me. What takes time is to learn the nature of the signs, the nature of the numbers. And once you do that, you can begin to really see that. So these are some of the things I'm going to say now. How do you get in touch with me? You see at the bottom of the screen, I have a free monthly newsletter. Okay, it's the numbers in your newsletter. So just go to Lloyd-Stayhorn.com. You see at the bottom left on the screen. And then if you go there, for those of you who want private sessions with me, you go to Lloyd-Stayhorn.com and click on the link consultations and set up the length of time or the day and time that suits best for you. Okay. Then I have one of my pride and joys, which is my Star 8 numerology mobile app. It is designed to make sure that you align yourself. And I think what I'll do maybe next week is I'll show you some screenshots on how the app looks. And especially, I mean, I have many features like the best call for you, compatibilities for business, for home, resident address. But mine is the calendar. So if you're a business person and you need to schedule an important interview or take an important test, the calendar will help align this. And all this started years ago for business clients, and they would bring me a calendar. I'd have my red marker, my green marker. Green represents the go days. Red represents the slow or no days. And those will help you like that. So because of the technology, and fast forward this 21st century, I now have it on my app. So you can go to the Play Store or Apple Store, and it's called a Star 8, ASTAR, like a star in the heavens with a number 8 attached to it. So it's ASTAR, the number 8. Download it on your phone, and you will see. Now, there are some premium platforms to it because that's the nature of it, and I want to expand it. But basically, the basics of it, the daily forecast that I give every day, things of that nature. It always shows what numbers are favorable to you, what numbers are cautionary to you. These are the kinds of things that I explain. But the calendar, of all the features, that is my pride and joy because it helps a person be in the right place at the right time. So let's say you got an appointment that you have to be at, and it's a 1, 2, or 3 red star day, which are more cautionary periods. You still go, but if things don't turn out the way you want to, at least you don't get bent out of shape. So you try to do things that are most favorable to you on 1, 2, or 3 green star days, because the more green stars they are, the more favorable the conditions of you accomplishing your task. It took me years to work this out, but the technology has now allowed me to put it into a mobile app that you can download on your phone and use. So any questions you have as we move forward, please let me know. Just write into Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology here at Soul City Network, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. I do want to thank Matt McCoy, Jazzy Poo, who are the producers, Yana Woodhouse, one of my favorites, who inspired me and then sold me on the idea because Matt has approached me, and I'm very glad. So I'm very honored to do this program. And any questions you have in the future, we will do it. Yes, we will be taking phone calls in the future, so it'll make it different. Again, also when you go to lloyd-stayhorn.com, click on the newsletter. The newsletter is absolutely free. We do not, I repeat, we do not sell your mailing list to people. I don't play that. If there's anything that comes in that newsletter, it's either me or a colleague that works with me like a co-sponsor, but that's it. All right. And no, we don't sell your mailing list. I don't play that. I respect your privacy very, very much. So I do want to thank all of you for watching. I guess it is time for me to wrap up. This is my premiere show. Now, as the weeks progress and the months progress, I'll be more professional. I'll be more at home. But right now, this was a very wonderful experience. And again, I can't thank Matt and Jazzy Poo for making my life easier. And so any questions you have, please let me know. And I do thank Soul City Network for bringing me on board. And I promise to put my best foot forward, answer all your questions with some intelligence. And hopefully you will have a better understanding, which is why I will act as your guide when it comes to the world of astro-numerology. Ask your questions. I don't know everything, but what I do know or what I don't know, I'll go search it and find out for you, because there are colors, there's stones, there's jewelry, there's all kinds of things that govern cities, countries. All these things I'll be talking about in the weeks and months ahead. So you'll see exactly how diverse these metaphysical branches of astrology and numerology are. In the meantime, I do want to thank you very, very much. And you'll all have a pleasant day, and I'll see you then.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.